know what you want, and also take a little bit of the extra effort to write a professional, because writing a line on Instagram when you're maybe on the John might not be the best way to do it.
And a lot of people are looking at Instagram when they're on the toilet. So
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Art Department podcast, episode 39 with Emmanuel Shiu, myself, Jan Urschel, and this week's guest is Brian Matyas, and he's a concept designer who has worked on a variety of Hollywood productions, including a lot of Star Wars properties. And today, and for this week, he's here with us in our imaginary studio, and he's going to share a lot about what it takes to be a concept designer in this very cutthroat industry. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it to Brian, and why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction of where you came from and how you managed to do what you're doing right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks guys for having me. I really enjoyed this show that you put on. Really interesting topics and guests, and I'm humbled that you asked me on. So thank you for that.
Of course.
I guess a little bit of my backstory. I can go as far back as when I was a kid. I always loved to draw, and go into that as much as you want. But I went to the interesting thing is I went to a magnet middle high school, and magnet programs are. I grew up in North Carolina. And magnet schools are somewhat commonplace in the South. It's not exactly a charter school or a private school. It had visual and performing arts, and this specific thing was offered to students outside of your school, of your neighborhood, or your district of where you grow up. So you can apply to these schools. So I applied there with with a portfolio from the 5th grade. So I had some art, and I got in, and that's kind of where I started, my journey really as a visual artist. And from there, I went to Columbus College of Art and Design, and that was in Ohio, and I studied illustration there. Very old school at the time. I think they were just starting to accept digital as a viable tool for what we do. It was still editorial illustration. That was the meat of what they taught there. So we had to. I had a small group of friends that also liked concept art through the conceptart.org forums, and we would kind of modify our school assignments to kind of fit what we want to do in the portfolio that we wanted to have when we would graduate, which was not at the liking of a lot of the instructors. Our dean of illustration, I think he had a bit of a hard time with that, because I still remember I did a portrait where I put myself historically, maybe in the 16th or 17th century, decapitating one of my friends. And my teacher's like, "What does this mean?" I'm like, "It doesn't really mean anything. I just wanted to, paint it, trying to adapt that in a way that could maybe, get me a job later." He didn't understand it, but when I graduated, I had a really eclectic portfolio because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into games or even toys. I really liked doing sculpture at the time. I did like a lot of maquettes out of Sculpey and stuff like that. And I had a kind of a hodgepodge of different stuff. And I had some offers, which was interesting. I had an offer from Hasbro and some game studios, and then I was interested in getting to the film industry, but it was really hard to get your foot in the door. I didn't really know anybody too well, anyways, that was working in the film industry, and I decided to apply to ILM for a PA position, and one of my instructors knew a matte painter called Mark Sullivan. I don't know if you guys know Mark Sullivan, but he worked for Doug at Ice Blink, and I think he did some stuff on A Christmas Carol. But he came to our school and he looked at my work, and he was like, "That's cool stuff, you know." But I was like, "It would be nice if I could, you know, maybe get into the industry in some way." So he put me in touch with Doug Chang, and Doug Chang wrote me an email essentially saying that there was a PA position that was open. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. So I flew out to California, and I looked at ILM and then in Image Movers, and decided to take that job, which was probably the most risky. My parents didn't really understand why I was taking a job for minimum wage in California. It was really hard to find a place to live for minimum wage in Marin County, but I found this little, you know, it was like a shoebox apartment on makeshift houses that were near this ferry building, and I took a place there, and I just kind of wanted to still learn, because when I graduated, it was nice that, you know, I had job offers and things, you know, where, you know, I could be employed, but I always knew in the back of my mind I didn't know anything really. I was still a student, and I was very intimidated about, you know, taking that next step forward into the real world, essentially. So the PA position was great for me, and it was essentially a glorified coffee getter for the first, I would say, 6 months.
Wow.
Got lunch and coffee for Doug, and, you know, made sure the costumes were well fitted in the art department. Printer ink and all that was full. But really, I was there to bug the other artists. I worked with Emmanuel there, go by his office, and Dermot Power was there, and he was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Image Movers, because I really was a huge fan of his work. I really liked his efficiency with communicating visually, and I took it out almost as a you know, I want to be your mentee, but really just, you know, kind of bugged him, and he, you know, humored me when I would stand behind him as he worked, and essentially learned better practice that way by bugging professionals essentially in real time in a studio, um, and that really helped a lot, because my entire, you know, visual eye and way of communicating changed after that point. And after Image Movers, I did some freelance. So I worked on some movies, Paradise Lost, which then became Gods of Egypt, which I think you worked on, Emmanuel, and Jack the Giant Slayer, just a bunch of different random odds and ends. And then things dried up for a few months, and I got a little nervous, because that's the first time where I was unemployed for a bit, and and I wasn't sure what to do at that point. If I should start looking outside of California at different, you know, at different companies, or what. And then I got an opportunity to work for Caban, which is a small social games company, and that really changed. That was a different environment. It was a lot of illustrators, a lot of artists worked there that worked on Magic the Gathering, and a really talented bunch of artists. The biggest art department I've ever worked, you know, and I would say there's 2 dozen artists, 2D artists at one point, which was pretty cool. And I knew that that company wasn't going to last, because they spent money like you wouldn't believe on us, on employees. They flew us out to Vegas and to Tahoe, and just spent a ton of money. And I really never understood it, because the games were the early phone games, where they weren't very interesting, at least to me. But the art, they really did honor and value art that we did, which was cool. Um, and I took a lot of that illustration, you know, that love for art being art with me, you know, moving forward. Um, and after that, I worked for more game companies, Telltale Games, and also for the new Bioshock. So, fast forward now, I was working at Telltale, and I got an opportunity to start working for Lucasfilm on the parks for Galaxy's Edge. That's kind of my first opportunity with them, and I was doing characters for the parks. That at that time they really wanted a very aspirational idea for what Galaxy's Edge could be and what that planet could be. And they had some amazing ideas. I really hope make it into the actual theme park at some point. But I did a lot of costumes for that and for the hotel that's coming out. I guess once the pandemic, cools off a bit, and and then after that, I was getting enough work that I decided to quit Telltale, and I split my time between working on the new Bioshock and for Lucasfilm on the Mandalorian, and and it was about 6 day weeks. It was pretty brutal because the 3 days I did 3 days with Bioshock, 3 days with Lucasfilm, um, and the Mandalorian was pretty intense. They really wanted a lot in those 3 days, and it got to a point where Doug asked me to go full time, and I left. I left Bioshock to then be essentially the only actually focused character guy for that project. And since then it's been a lot of a lot more Lucasfilm projects on a lot of cool stuff that I can't talk about yet.
Are you on it full? Are you like an employee at Lucasfilm or
uh,
freelancing or?
yeah, I'm technically contract, but
Hmm.
I've signed contracts for the length of the projects, which is cool. So right now I'm juggling between a few.
Oh, cool. Well, so you're at Lucasfilm now, full time, basically 5 days a week, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're not splitting your time. Even if you were, you probably can't say. That's fine. But no. How does it feel to? I mean, there was a time. I mean, you started with Doug, you left, and then you kind of took a little hiatus, and you did a whole bunch of other things. How does it feel to be back with Doug?
Yeah, like circle.
Yeah. How's that feeling? Is it good? Because now I remember that when you were at IMD, you're up and coming, and there were, we used to go to lunch all the time, and just talk about stuff. But I know that at that time you were trying to sort of solidify and get your style and just everything you wanted to do in design. How does it feel now that you come back? Doug's obviously, he sees, something in you, that he wants to hire you back full time, and you're the only character guy. Is that like a real, was that really different? How did it feel?
It's it's interesting because when at the time I don't think about it like that. It's sort of another opportunity and a and someone I've worked with that I have a good rapport with and like genuinely like working with. Um, I didn't know what I was getting into initially. I didn't know like the resonance of what I would be creating at the time when I was starting. And I think that was a good thing because, it's sort of like when you have the realization that what you're working on is going to be translated, that can be intimidating. And I think there's a progression of that realization through me working there, um, where once I think it was interesting because when I got the first panic attack that I can remember having, and it's a weird one, is I was in Hawaii, and this was after I worked on season one of The Mandalorian, and they were at, I think it was Star Wars Celebration when they had the actors come out on stage, and it was accompanied by my work. I had no idea it was going to be projected like 20 feet tall to accompany the actors out there. Um, that was when that was a realization that I didn't quite like understand until that moment, because up to that point for me as a concept artist, I would always do work that would inspire or was just kind of cool art. But if it got translated, that's great. If it became a game character or you know an animated character, or even an actor in a costume, I mean, that'd be great. But I've never had that experience really before. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is like real. and then there's all these eyeballs on my work. And to me, that, my wife is like, isn't that great? I'm like, yeah, that's great. To me, it was an interesting feeling. It was great, but at the same time, it was real. And the work I'm doing is going to be seen by a lot of people, and it is going to help with the costumes be realized, and the costume designers, the armory departments, all of those components are coming together, and people are going to see that. That was the first realization of that moment. And it was initially kind of an anxiety attack, which was really interesting. Um, but that was kind of like a moment in my life where I had it, and then I accepted it, and I kind of moved past it, grew past it. And it's not saying that I haven't had anxiety and stuff since then, because I think that's something that a lot of artists can really relate to. That we're all very harsh critics of our work, and also we want to put out work that we are proud of, that we want other people to see and also enjoy. That You can put a lot of pressure on yourself, and I'm one of those artists that I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver, because Star Wars is a good example of something with a fan base already built in. There's already an expectation, and there's a love there that you want to be respectful of. And for me, as a fan, I've been a fan of Star Wars ever since I was little, playing with action figures and taking a little disposable camera and going to Walgreens to develop my little film frames. I've loved it, and now that I'm contributing to the universe, it's a very surreal feeling. Um,
I mean,
yeah.
you've been doing Star Wars for a while now, and I mean, I guess you are the last person I would think would even now start having sort of anxiety, which is very interesting to me, because I think a lot of people, it doesn't matter how seasoned you are or how young you are, because I'm sure you had a different kind of anxiety when you started at IMD, as a PA. You had a different kind of anxiety, but so now, even now, would you say that it's, you know, do you have any, do you just kind of go with it when you kind of start feeling like, oh man, is it like kind of like an imposter syndrome kind of anxiety, or is it like I'm not, doing good enough work, or is it just in general like, oh my God, everybody's seeing this, it's freaking me out, like, is it more like that, or?
I think it's evolved,
Hmm.
because I didn't know what anxiety was until I actually worked at IMD. And I remember the first time I had a panic attack, I actually drove myself to the ER, because it
Oh.
was, I think it was Memorial Day weekend, and I was asked to stay. I had plans, and I was asked to stay to work on. You remember Christmas Carol? They had the John Leach style watercolor pen and inks at the beginning and the end of the movie. Well, I did those, and the last frame they changed. So I already did the art, and it was on a frame that they decided to tweak a bit. So I think
Hmm.
they extended the walk cycle of it was Scrooge, and I had to change it. So I had to work that Saturday. So I kind of postponed my plans because I was going to drive south, I believe. So was like, okay, I'll come in Saturday morning, and you know, like who's going to give me, you know, the frame to work off of, and everything was supposed to be ready to go for me. I think it was around noon, and it wasn't. So the person that was supposed to send me that frame didn't come in until I think it was like 5 or 6 p.m. that day. So I waited at the office for about 5 or 6 hours to get the frame to then start the work. So by that time, it was already an evening on a Saturday on that holiday weekend. And I was just trying to crank to get that done because I wanted to get it done as quickly as I could, which was, I think, at midnight, maybe a little after midnight, I finished. And I think I wasn't doing proper breathing because I was just rushing. So when I left the building and I got hit with the, you know, the cold fog air, I think it just like made my heart start racing and it freaked me out. I thought I was having a heart attack. So I drove to the ER, and that was interesting because uh, they had me all, you know, they hooked me up to an EKG, and you know, they just told me it was a panic attack, and I didn't know what that was. I always thought it was just someone hyperventilating in a paper bag. I mean, I had a very sort of childish idea of what that was. And it's interesting because once, like, I mean, at least for me, once you understand what it is, it deflates the severity of it. So at that time, it was, you know, just like biological. I think I just wasn't breathing well, and it freaked me out once I was starting to have actual symptoms that were a little strange. But I have had mild anxiety, I think, throughout my art career, and it has been imposter syndrome, and it has evolved as a professional to just, you know, having work being seen on a larger scale, um, that I never really expected, and that has been an amazing experience. I mean, I'm really humbled. I've, you know, there's so many Star Wars fans that I've met, you know, online that are just really amazing, like, you know, beautiful people. So it's not anything really negative. It's just, I think, the pressure I put on myself to, you know, deliver cool characters. I think, like, for me, when I design, I want these characters. My test is, do I want a toy of that? And if the answer is no, it's not successful, at least for me.
Mm.
So, yeah, because I think that's also, I think, you know, all, you know, to rewind back to when I was even considering going into toys as a sculptor, I think this is that weird, rare opportunity where some of the things I can draw can then become toys. So even if I'm not sculpting and contributing directly to that industry, I kind of can do that now, which is which is a rare opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
but it adds to that pressure too, I
Mm.
think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, I mean, Jan, I don't want to just keep asking
No,
questions. Did you
I have
have
something
something?
related to Star Wars, but maybe if you wanna, if you have something
Well, no,
else.
yeah, I just kept thinking, that it, we haven't talked in a while, but whenever I see you post on Instagram, I think to myself, because I've been getting to more into character stuff myself, but it's just for personal stuff. I'm just learning, you know, character work. But I'm like, um, it must be a lot of pressure to try to come up with, you know, something that you know, for me would be like, well, there's, you know, how many different ways can I do that, you know, helmet, or do the you know, and I just think to myself, oh my God, that would, it would be so much pressure and anxiety if I had to do it, because in environments, you know, it's totally different building, right? It's, you know, totally different language. And for me, I was like, wow, that must be quite difficult. And but I do also realize that you're working with Doug, which, you know, he is pretty mellow that way. But I also know the pace and stuff like that also Do you think the pace and the fact that you said that people are seeing it, like a lot more people are seeing this, is that what's does the pace ever give you anxiety? I guess is the question. Like the speed of which you have to do work, and maybe sometimes, like I know for myself, sometimes it goes great, and I come up with some great ideas in the 6 hours, 8 hours. Sometimes I don't. Then I'm working 12 hours, 14 hours on my own time to get those ideas. Does that ever stress you out? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's just natural. I think we're all humans. I mean, as much as I would like to be more of a machine, it's very difficult to constantly hit those aces every single time. It's just you can't do it. And some I mean, and there's other things like I've really you've had a discussion about burnout, and I completely relate to that. It's when you are cranking hard. I think that's just a natural phase for any human that you need to just kind of step away. And I also think about like just your physiology. Like if you go super hard like that, something's gonna break eventually. So I do try and take breaks. And obviously I'm expanding on your question a bit, but like I'm trying to be better because there was a period of time where work was so stressful that I was letting everything else go, and I was just cranking on the work, and I would finish and then just hit go to bed. And then in the mornings have like kind of a slow wake up. I'm not a morning person, but it'd take me a while to like restart, flip the switch and go again the next day sometimes. And now I'm trying better practice. I built a climbing wall in my backyard, a bouldering wall, because I wasn't getting exercise. And with the pandemic, I can't go to a climbing gym. So I decided to build one, which has been a fun side project. And I think hobbies are very important. Something that's very therapeutic that you can step away from your computer and do something else is really a positive for me, anyways, because when you are getting burnout or things are getting frustrated and you're not nailing it, you need to do something else, or you need to step away from it and then come back. But it's really hard to do that sometimes, to step away from it, like the next day, because that's what I used to do. If something wasn't working, I would just go to bed, and then I would wake up and I would see the image differently. But when I have to turn in something the next day, or a few things by the next day, which is often the pace, you're not afforded that time.
Mm.
So, trying to, put the dial back to zero quickly is really important. And I've done a lot of different, things to experiment on how to do that. Like, I've brought back analog with my process a bit. I would have some monster clay, and if I couldn't figure out a helmet or an alien head, I would sculpt something crudely in the monster clay, and I'll take photos of it with my phone and then paint over that. Just, like I know a lot of people use Moto and, ZBrush and stuff like that, but for me, I miss that analog, and I know it's crude, but it is a good way for me to do something that isn't in my computer, or marker sketches. I've done marker sketches for some of the keyframes I've done. Start with a really crappy marker sketch that I might not show anybody, but it's for me to like inform, composition
Mm.
and maybe the lighting and stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting because what has helped me is having a foundation of a process that I can rely on, that I feel confident in. And also how I gather reference is very important, because Star Wars is interesting. It's a very specific franchise visually, and there's a lot of real estate there, but there also isn't, if that makes sense, because it's sort of it's right in the middle of fantasy and science fiction. And if you push it too far in either direction, it kind of breaks. And the more I work within that sandbox, I think it gets harder. You think it would get easier, but I'm finding that, at least for me and my aesthetics, the real estate feels like it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So how I gather reference has really helped me with that. Where I'm, a big fan of history and culture, and I do spend a lot of my time, the concept time that I spend gathering references a lot, sometimes hours out of my day. I'll just, pull up old books or, start researching, like different, new cultures or something, or new fashion designers that I've never seen before. Something that, kind of changes my mind about what I like or expands upon it. And I think it's interesting, like the original Star Wars films did a really awesome job with the vehicles in particular, the ships. They referenced things that you wouldn't expect, like Boba Fett's Slave One ship, for an example, or like lampposts in East Bay. They were this really interesting shape, and I think they just took some photos of those lampposts, and that's that's the base of that ship essentially, which is pretty cool. And I think it's that kind of thinking is like, finding inspiration in unlikely places can give you some really interesting, unique results. So that does help me sometimes, is thinking about it a little bit differently.
I mean, so
Yeah,
my
yeah.
question was actually directly connected to that. I mean, we had guests on who were saying that, I mean, the thing they like the most is blue sky. Like do anything you like experiment with something completely different the world has never seen, and that's where they find their most creative fulfillment. And like you said, Star Wars is in many respects the church of Rolf McQuarrie visually. And I'm wondering how you feel about what your struggles are working in such a franchise where it's just like I don't know, something like, I don't know, Halo or whatever, which has an incredibly established style and language, and like you said, like if you push it too much in either way, then it'll break. And the color palette, the feeling of it, like, and you keep on going back to Tatooine for this and that, right? And then you have to do certain things, and not to judge whether it's good or bad, but I mean, how do you like, do you feel that as a limitation? Do you feel that as a challenge? A bit of both, depending on how you feel? I don't know.
So, yeah, just so that I understand the question, like Ralph McQuarrie is, Joe Johnson, Ralph McQuarrie,
Yeah.
everyone that designed the original Star
Yeah.
Wars is Bible,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like that's intimidating, and then it's also, how far do you want to like pull away from that,
Yeah.
or what pull away from that, so it doesn't feel like you're just ripping off your source material, that you're paying homage
Yeah.
respectfully, but also doing something unique and new. And yeah, that is a challenge, isn't it? Right? Because I think like I think what people like, and it's interesting, I think as the generations go on, I know fans that started with the prequels, and the prequels are their favorites.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
for me, it's the originals.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I grew up with. Empire is one of my favorite films of all time. There's very few perfect films that I think, and I'm such a cinephile. I love films, but that one is like really perfect for me. Just hits all the beats and looks beautiful, and just some of the best design, and really, yeah, it's been very challenging to honor him and the work that they've done, Joe Johnson as well, um, but do something new. And it's also working within the aesthetics of the filmmakers that you're working for as well, because like in the case of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they have their own vision that they want to
Right.
bring, and honoring that. And fortunately, John, with the Mandalorian, I'm a huge Sergio Leone fan, and that was also our Bible essentially. So we were, taking these these two elements essentially and combining them in a way that was trying to pay homage and respect to the original fan base.
So,
Um,
I mean,
Oh,
within saying like, yeah, Joe Johnston and Ralph McQuarrie and Jon Favreau and everybody, like, where do you feel Brian fits in? Like, do you remove yourself completely from the equation and saying like, I'm just doing this like project so it looks like it fits into that world, or how much of yourself are you trying to put in? Because I mean, we can't help but putting part of ourselves into it, but like, where do you, like, how do you see that? Like, where does Brian have to add to the mix, right, so to speak?
right. Yeah. I think like we can't help but have things that we like, you know? Like I think what makes us artists are a collection of our interests and our life experiences. So, I mean, for me, I have my own taste and my own aesthetic, and I think I can't help but put that in the work that I do. But at the same time, like I really like being a designer, and I like designing within, a certain, like I would say, constraints that, feel appropriate, like not too much or not too loose is where I really like to work within, because I kind of understand the guidelines, I understand the mechanics, I understand where my, my own personal taste can come alive. And I've felt that Star Wars like feels the most natural for me and my aesthetics of any of the projects I've worked on thus far in my career. I've I really like, the Dune, like sort of dirty, grungy, fantasy science fiction. It's not too hard sci-fi. I feel like if I have to think a lot about how something works, then I never get a drawing done. So if I can be like, it's Star Wars magic, that's why that's why that thing exists, and then I think that's why Star Wars works so well, is a lot of the lore that now is canon, I think the fans made up, you can read, I think, like 3 wiki pages on everything that makes up Vader's costume. And I'm pretty sure, fans, just started adding to that for like, over the course of 40 years. But yeah, I think like there's every assignment is a little bit different. And I think there are opportunities, and they're more than I expected, where I feel like there are characters that I feel like that are a little bit of me in there, or a lot of me in there. And I think there are also characters where I was really hard referencing McQuarrie that, were a little out of my comfort zone. Like, for example, I've done a lot of droids and a lot of hard surface stuff. I felt like I wasn't very good at going into working for Lucasfilm, and I've gotten more proficient at it just from really studying, their shape language, their ratios, and a lot of that I think harkens back to a lot of the foundations studies that I did in college, where it's, like your dominant, subdominant, subordinate forms, big, medium, small, and how you arrange those in pleasing ways. And I always feel like I can get better at that, because I think that's really at the core of Star Wars, is that really identifiable shape language. I think if you can put one of your characters on a hill in the distance, and if you can identify who that character is, then it's successful. It should hold up from distance as it does up close, and a kid should be able to draw it, So, yeah, does that answer your question?
No,
Sorta?
yeah, perfectly, perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's really great to
Okay,
hear.
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Do you have something, Emmanuel? You look like you.
No, I'm just waiting for you. I thought you had keep going.
So yeah, let me think. I mean, with all this stuff, and you seem to be like juggling so many professional projects within Star Wars, or maybe also outside. But I mean, do you do personal art? I mean, beside the bouldering and beside the Star Wars drawing, do you have time to feel? Do you feel like you need to do personal art?
When I'm not working, I don't want to be working. And I
Okay.
think a lot of because I think a lot of people would gasp at that, personal art shouldn't feel like work, you know. But I think what it is for me, I'm a fidgety. You can probably tell I'm moving around a lot. I don't like sitting still for too long, and yet that's required of me. So for me, I have a lot of other interests, and I have things that I want to learn that I'm not good at, and that's kind of where I want to spend my time when I'm not working. But I mean, to answer your question, there are projects that I want to do. Before I started working for Lucasfilm, I wanted to explore a short film where I actually started making props and costumes for it. And then I got a few quotes for, some assets I need. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll wait until I have some more, disposable income to really go into it. But I would like to maybe explore, maybe the filmmaking on the other side of the curtain. So yeah, I'm not currently, but
Interesting.
I have so many other hobbies at the moment that
What are
I'm
they? What are the hobbies?
um well, let's see. Well, the climbing wall is that was really a fun. I'm not a woodworker. I've never made really anything with wood. And last year I got this crazy idea of building a 12-foot bouldering wall, and I did it in SketchUp. And my dad has a background in structural, essentially structural engineering. He did forming and shoring for a company, so he understands like how to make a structurally sound thing, which is, this has to be structurally sound because I'm going to be like throwing myself around on it. I don't want it to crush me. So I showed him the SketchUp model. I taught my dad SketchUp and, made everything to scale. And he helped, essentially design the thing and know exactly all of the pieces that would be required. And I got some friends to come over last year and put the thing together, which took a weekend, and uh, and that was really fun. And I think that's one of those. Uh, it's an interesting thing where you can learn something, and this was sort of like, what if I did that, and then I actually followed through with doing it, where I had no idea. And it took me about 4 months, I think, from conception to getting the materials to actually assembling it and completing it. But I had no idea what I was doing. But I learned, and I also had my dad being essentially my instructor, my boss, helping me remotely, put it all together, and that was really fun. So I really like that. I like classic cars, so that one's interesting. Emmanuel, I know you've raced before. That's something I would like to get into, but I also am really nervous of taking a
You got a
50-year-old
Z,
car.
right? You got what do you have, a 240 or something?
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
a 71 240Z, but it's track prepped, so it's ready to go. I'm too nervous to do it.
Yeah, those things are really, really, really hard to drive. They can be very difficult. So
They're
maybe just take it really easy if you do
Yeah,
go.
I mean it's got no assist, right? So
Yeah.
I mean I do take it up to the canyons, and I do spirited runs in the canyons, but I respect all the laws. But it's yeah, I do try and push it to the limits, but I would like to do that on the track. So that's another potential hobby on the way. But yeah, I think a lot of artists, they need they need some other outlet outside of their work. And if their work isn't giving them the if that's not like giving what their core essence as an artist needs, then they need something else or something removed from the industry entirely, to do it for themselves and not show it to anyone else, or whatever it may be. I think it's very healthy. And for me, I've never been too much of a person that does personal work, but I see like the work that you guys do, and I'm like, man, maybe I should find some time to do that, because there's so much inspirational stuff out there, and 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 I think it could be therapeutic, but at the moment I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people are they get to the weekend and they're like, look, I'm done. I
Yeah.
need to step away. And I know what that's like, because I haven't had a weekend in a while, but it's not healthy. It's not good. And I think everybody needs to step away at some point and find. But I mean, I have my own things, but um, it's good to hear that you do that, because I think it's important for a lot of people to see what other people do, and how it can maybe help them get through sometimes when they're just a little bit burned out, and what do you do to recharge your batteries? Everybody has their way, I guess. I mean,
Right.
it's different for everybody, right? I mean, Jan, do you do anything special?
Me, anything
You
special?
don't do much personal work anyway now.
I have no choice. I'm being how to say, I'm being forced by my kids to do something else, more or less. To be honest, no, I mean, I don't touch anything on the weekend at all. It's just all really family time, and I really need that to. I mean, even though I have that feeling of like. It's like, I really want to do something else. Like, if I just use that weekend, I could get so much more done. But excuse me, but I think if I would use that weekend with just work, then I don't know, I'd probably burn out really quickly. And
Right.
I mean, the kids are also growing up, so there's going to be a bit of how to say, like reclaiming some of that time in the future. And I just hope I have some energy left. So I mean, and you also need to spend time on staying healthy, staying fit, right? So it's
Family's important too.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I mean, there's so much more to life for me personally. I think there's so much more to life than just art.
Mm,
And there's, like, and as I'm growing older, it's like, but I want to do so many different things. Like, and I think about, different life paths as well. Like, I look at these bespoke mechanics and stuff, like doing these amazing like works of art with vehicles, and I was like, hey, that could be cool. What if I did that? But you only have so much time in the day,
yeah, that's
right?
true. And for everything
Yeah,
you want to focus on, well, you need to forget about the 10 other things you want to do. You can't read every book you want to do. You can't learn every language. You can't, like, in the end of the day, it's like really, like, what do you choose to do, right? If you really jump into, like, if you want to do your short film, then you probably won't have time for, I don't know, cars or kids or wife or
right.
whatever, right? So, and it's really, it's hard. It's hard though. I think it's one of the realizations when you grow older that you just can't do everything. When you're 20, you feel like you can do like I'll get to that when I'm 30, right? And then suddenly you are 30 and you're like, shit, what have I done the last 10 years? But that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine, right?
that's interesting, because I remember when I was young, when I was in my 20s, I actually didn't even have any like, well, I'm going to do that or do that. I
Oh,
was
me
just like,
neither.
well, I'm just going to party today.
Yeah, I was drunk. Yeah, most
Like,
of
I
most of it.
actually was living more in the moment when I was in the 20s,
Right.
because I was actually living
Yeah,
in the moment. I was like,
yeah,
where are we going tonight?
right.
And now I'm going, what am I going to be doing in 10 years? How am I going to afford this thing and that thing and
Yeah.
all this? And then ultimately, in the end, it's like, kind of would like to go back to just, let's have some fun
Living
today.
the moment. Yeah, I feel like when I'm in front of the computer, I'm doing a lot of thinking, and there's none of that unless I'm really going into some work and I'm losing myself, and it's, the groove period of doing art. But I feel like that's maybe 2 hours out of my day
Hmm.
when I'm really into that groove period. But everything else is like thinking about, oh well, oh, I have
Yeah.
to do my taxes,
Oh my
you're
god.
thinking of all those other things that you have to do, which I still have to do. But that's why I want to go outside, and I need something else. I really like climbing because it forces you to be in the moment.
Hmm.
You can't be thinking about anything else if you're, a couple hundred feet off the ground, right? So I like those things. I like hiking, and I like trying to find a way to center yourself again, and to, yeah, like you said, be present is very important. Um, because yeah, I feel like it's so easy to get lost in my own head.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I know what that feels like, for sure. Anything else, Jan?
No, I think we maybe
I saw you.
we'll touch on maybe the last topic for this
Right.
interview, and there was something you touched on, Brian, in a previous email conversation that we had about the importance and the challenges of searching for new iconography as a designer. Maybe we can touch a little bit on that in that regard. Do you wanna mention something?
Oh, sorry, me or
Yeah,
is that
you.
Emmanuel?
Of course.
Oh,
No, yeah.
it looks like you're looking over at him, and I forget.
Yeah, I'm
there's-
looking. I'm reading part of the email just to make sure I get it right.
Till the end of the interview now, I'm like, huh? What? Yeah, sure. I think we already touched a little bit on it when we were talking about, yeah, just how to leave your own mark or put yourself into into a project that isn't really yours is is important to see if, especially if you're afforded that opportunity, if you have a project that kind of fits your interests and you're given assignments or a, you know, like a resonance within that project to actually give a little bit of yourself, like, you know, I think we touched a little bit about like how do you handle that, you know, how do you like battle anxiety if that's, you know, within, you know, something that you might, you know, deal with. Like it's interesting. I think like iconography is something that, like, as I kind of progressed in my career, that you know, up to a point where it's like I'm chasing jobs, like I want to work on this project or I want to work for this company, and I feel like those are fleeting. Like that's a fleeting feeling. You can work on, you know, that project or for that company, but it might not exactly be what you know, like thought it would be.
Mm.
I think that can often be the case for artists, you know, once they get what they thought they wanted. So I think like at our core, we all like image making, we like storytelling, or we, you know, if we're going into concept art or concept design, whatever, you know, you want to call it, you understand that you know, you're problem solvers and you're wanting to contribute as a team player to something bigger than yourself. But we're also afforded a lot of, we can have a lot of power at the same time with our images. And it's one of those great things where you can do your images, and you know, if it doesn't turn out well, then you can be like, oh well, that, you know, that's whoever's fault. And if it turns out great, you're like, oh yeah, I designed that, you know. um, it's it's one of those things where I think you can figure out where you fit and how to give a little bit of yourself, so that maybe you can create something that transcends just the images you create. And I think that's what I'm searching for personally. I really want to create things that might have their own fan base, or you know, I might be proud of, people might want to dress up as. I mean, that to me is really cool when it has some like cultural resonance where people love them so much that they'll, you know, they'll celebrate it in their own way, or interpret it in their own way. I think that's really kind of, for me, the thing that I want, and that I feel like I've gotten a little bit of. But for me, I would really like to even, you know, be more involved in that other process. I think that would require me to be in LA, but you know, maybe work with the armorers, maybe even paint some scratches on some helmets they did. I mean, that sort of thing. I always was impressed by Joe Johnson, especially with Boba Fett. If we talk about Boba Fett, I mean, he contributed concept designs for Boba Fett, but then he was the one that was helping paint his armor as well, and was very actively in the process of seeing his creation that him and Ralph designed through to the final result. I mean, that to me is really cool, where you're helping evolve your creations in 2 dimension to 3 dimension in a way that that is rarely afforded. I think that's where I want to go. And I think, and that's just for characters, but I think iconography can be anything. It's any, like, with environments or architecture or, props and vehicles. I mean, vehicles is a great example where, like things that are iconic, stand the test of time. And I think that for all of us designers, that's something that we can all aspire to try and contribute, to the world.
No,
That's
that's
really,
that's that's great. I actually, because I'm also looking back at the email, but I also, you know, when I wrote to you about, maybe talking about mentorships, because I think that those are, it's like this big mystery that a lot of people, they hear the word mentorship and they go, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna go get a mentor, I'm gonna do this or that, and from what you wrote, I think there is something in terms of like how do you feel about it? You've mentored some people, and I'm sure when you were at IMD, you kind of you were trying to kind of be this mentee to Durham, but I think you guys actually became friends more than a mentor or mentee. But um, you want to just touch on like sort of what you feel about mentorships, or maybe you've mentored some people, and what are some of the tips you can give for people to either find a mentor or make that mentorship work better.
yeah. I'm trying to remember back to your podcast on this topic, so I don't just kind of regurgitate
Oh,
the
it's
same
fine. I
talk
mean, it's
you did.
it's whatever you think, because I think that everybody has a different point of view, and I think it's really great for people who are actually actively mentoring people that it's not just me and Jan to talk about it, and it doesn't matter if it's the same information. So go for it.
Sure. Yeah. I I mean, initially, I think like when you know there's a certain professional practice. I think if I was going to give advice to people that are seeking mentorships from professionals, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it in a lot of ways. I think like at least personally for me, I don't pay attention to Instagram DMs, and if I do, it's people that take a little extra effort and writing something. But for me, at least with the mentees that I've taken on, they wrote me emails, like old school emails, and I was very impressed with that because I don't really see that very often. And they took a little bit of an extra step, and they did research, and they came with what they wanted, and what they even were like seeking me out to help them with, which was interesting because I've never at that time when I took on my first mentee, I was not considering going into education. I was actually really busy with work, and I just I wasn't really seeking that out. And I'm so glad that I did, because I think you learn so much as an educator just as much as a mentee. Because for me, it was like communicating the principles that I know how to visually communicate, but verbally, and in a way that's very efficient, so that it can be sort of easily digested, and then you help them grow. And it's incredibly rewarding. And I hope Ben doesn't mind me calling him out, but Ben Carr, he is now working at Blizzard, so he was my first mentee. And man, that he's an impressive human and artist, because he was very specific what he wanted. And I think, if you're going to be seeking out a professional for a mentorship to be a professional, I think you need to have an idea what you really want. And I think that's like maybe the advice that I would give is know what you want, and also take a little bit of the extra effort to write a professional, because writing a line on Instagram when you're maybe on the John might not be the best way to do it.
And you know, a lot of people are looking at Instagram when they're on the toilet. So
But that's when you
Yeah.
have the best ideas, no?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Actually. Jan, did you have anything
I
more?
was maybe not into the mentorship, but maybe the iconography. I was wondering. I mean, it's interesting that I mean, do you see yourself like, or do you have ideas about developing your own stuff? You completely own, I don't know, IP or stuff you want to pitch, or just something like, I don't know. It seems like now more than ever is the time to like do your own thing or start your own thing, start your own business, like like how to say, like pitch an idea to some studio. I don't know. Like it seems to be there's a lot of the get up and do your thing kind of like you can get your own character model toys printed in China and I don't know wherever, right? So is there like would you consider yourself like having like a strong entrepreneurial spirit of wanting to do that? I don't know, maybe you have plans to open your own bouldering home gym company together with your dad and your friends so that everybody can have their own bouldering gym at home in their backyard. I don't know. Any kind
Uh,
of plans like that, or
you just gave me that idea. Thanks a lot. I think I'll
hey,
go for
I'll commission you, okay?
that. I'll give you what's your cut? I'll give you a little bit. Not really. Well, yes and no. It intimidates me right now just because
Oh yeah.
I am working so hard that I
Mm,
know the effort that it takes to do it
mm,
and to do it right. Because I think like, you know, all of us, we enjoy it. We want to give something to the world. We have something that we might want to say, and if you're getting an opportunity, it's so easy for you to like get lost in the perfection that you're
mm.
trying to go for, and there's beauty in the imperfection, and I have to keep reminding myself of that, and it will never be perfect. So if I was to pursue something, even if it's a short film for an example, I probably won't do my idea that I really want to do right away. I would pick something else
Mm.
to learn,
Right.
grow, and then maybe go for
Right.
it later. But that takes time, and that
Mm.
definitely takes a bit of a financial. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's definitely there's a bit of a financial commitment that you have to do, and
We'll call it an
right.
investment. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is a investment. I would say, in the long term, I would definitely really like to do that.
Mm.
In the short term, I would like to buy a house. So that
Priorities. That's good.
is in the forefront. So
No,
yeah.
that makes perfect sense. It's just really interesting because yeah, I think us working on these really big movies is kind of a curse in a sense that like like whenever I do something, if I do my own stuff, it has to look at least as good as that, which of course is completely nonsense because we just don't have the thing. But I mean the only reasonable way, I guess, that in the short term or even midterm that you would have the control maybe you want over like designing your own stuff and then actually executing it and putting the scuff marks on your helmet design or whatever, the real prop, is probably gonna only happen when you really take matters in your own hands, I guess, right? Otherwise, I mean, in Hollywood everything is too like everybody's time is too precious, everybody's job is very like focused on one thing, and then like like you can't do this now because I need you to do 20 other designs by tomorrow, right? So I know I have my own projects that I want to do, and it's like something's got to give, right? You have to, like you said, like do this one first, learn the ropes, and then get back to the big thing you want to do a bit later when you actually know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So that's very true. That's very true.
So, quick question here. Are you going to stay in the Bay Area now that, the pandemic has shown that, well, you don't need to go to ILM or anything like that, and you do want to get a house, and I know in the Bay is insane. Are you planning to stay put, or what's your plans?
Yeah, my wife and we've been, discussing that because we love, I mean, I've lived in Marin for like over 12 years now, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe even longer, maybe 14. It's something crazy, but I've been here for a while, so I do feel like it's home. But in the same respect, yeah, I've just seen that the house prices are just going crazy. This year they just shot up, and we've already been talking to agents, and they're they're getting offers 15-20% over the asking price, which is
Wow.
ridiculous often. So.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, we would like to, but we're definitely keeping options open just because of how insane prices are. So,
Yeah. Well, good luck on getting the house because I guess before Jan asked, I was going to ask what sort of what is the next step for you? What is but I guess you've already answered that, a house, which is not a small thing. I mean, it's part of I think getting that um, stable future that everybody wants to have, and that's totally understandable. So, well, that's awesome. Uh, I mean, I you already answered my
Good
question
luck
there.
with that. Yeah, I
no,
mean,
I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe you have to go back to North Carolina. I don't know if that's in the books.
Hey,
I
it's
I
not
don't
much
know.
cheaper there
Oh,
now.
really?
North
Oh my
Carolina
God.
is
Okay.
not cheap now either. Because everybody's going there.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay.
have to sell some NFTs.
Yeah, you better get on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, I thought we were gonna get one episode without having those three letters come up.
Okay, I'll edit it out. Okay, I will cut it out. Awesome, awesome. I mean, was there anything else you wanted to ask Emmanuel, or
Oh, I'm good.
do you have
Anything
anything
you
else?
want to touch on,
Yeah,
Brian?
Brian. Anything else you want to give people on the way? I don't know.
I don't know. I think you guys asked some great questions and we covered a lot of bases. I can't think of anything off the top of my head,
Well, it's
at
great. Then I
least.
think, well, we assume you're still working on Mandalorian season. What is it now, 3? And so I think we have to wait until the credits of the episodes to see some new work, or maybe the May 4th event will bring the Star Wars celebration will bring some new sneak peeks of Brian's work, which we're all looking forward to. If you didn't already have enough in the awesome slideshow in our background here, there was a lot of good stuff in there. So I mean, thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time to talk to us. I know it's late over there. And I hope everybody in the audience really enjoyed this episode. So if you did, then please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll put links to Brian's portfolio and any kind of social media site in the description. So thanks so much again for tuning in, and see you guys next week. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, guys.